So what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to GAA Fan TV. I hope you're all keeping well. Today we're going to be looking at 5 counties that are on the rise in hurling. So first of all, if you can do me a massive favour, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Share this out to your friends and family. I would kindly appreciate it. And yeah, lads, we are back again with another video, and today we are looking at 5 counties that are on the rise in hurling. Now obviously in this video, of course, the big traditional counties, like all your counties down in Munster, pretty much all your big counties like Galway, Kilkenny for example, Wexford, are obviously not included in this video. This is 5 counties that don't normally make it to the high end of hurling. They don't normally reach All-Ireland finals, they don't normally reach provincial finals, and these are counties that have sprung a real rise in the past 5 to 10 years in hurling and could potentially go on to win provincial championships in the coming years, or could really cause surprises in the National League or even in the All-Ireland Championship. And of course, with hurling's new format, with the likes of the Joe McDonagh Cup now incorporated into the GAA season, we are seeing more and more success stories from counties that don't normally do so well in their provincial championships. So today we are looking at 5 of these counties, and yeah, without further ado, lads, let's jump straight into it. And of course, first up at number 5 we have Antrim. Now Antrim, of course, as we all well know, if for any hardcore hurling fans out there that's watching this video, you will know that Antrim, of course, have played in 2 All-Ireland hurling finals in their time, which of course is more than anyone, I think, on this list, as a matter of fact. And Antrim, playing in an All-Ireland final in the 40s, and I think another one in the late 80s. But in all honesty, since then, and since really the mid-1990s and sort of early 2000s, it's really all fallen apart for Antrim in terms of hurling. And in fact, many people would even say that Gaelic football is actually more on the rise nowadays in Antrim than hurling. When you look at the Antrim senior football team, I think they played, was it in a Ulster final back in 2009 or 2010, or around that type of time period. So, and I think there have been many reasons really why Antrim hasn't been able to stay at the same heights that it was. I think first of all, you have to factor in that the old format of course favoured Antrim reaching All-Ireland semi-finals back in like the 70s and 80s. Antrim, of course, didn't really have any real challengers in Ulster. Down were probably their only real competitor, and Antrim were very easily able to beat them on 9 times out of 10, in most years, let's say, for example. So obviously, with the sort of new format that's come in and sort of everything else, it's been very difficult for Antrim to really keep up with the likes of the sides down in Munster or Connacht. I mean, anytime they really reached an All-Ireland semi-final and came up against any of those sides, 9 times out of 10 they were beaten, because they were coming up against sides that were playing at a much higher level and counties who were already in massive battles down the years. So, and I think another factor for their their sort of downfall in many ways was obviously the Troubles as well up the north. I mean, that had a significant impact on the development of Irish sports, and obviously hurling was one of those. And Casement Park, for example, was abandoned in the early 2000s, and that is where Antrim play their home football, their home hurling. That is their home stadium, and that is the big stadium in Ulster. That was where provincial finals were held every year, and that was their home. When you think of Antrim's population, the city of Belfast, it's a big city, and it does certainly have a lot of talent there. We've seen it down the years in other sports, and they still have produced a lot of very talented hurlers and footballers. And you look at Neil McManus, for example, in the Joe McDonagh Cup, he scored 4 goals and 97 points, actually making him the all-time scorer in the Joe McDonagh Cup since it was formed in 2018. So he has been a very good player for Antrim down the years, and Antrim do produce a lot of talented players. And I think if they were to get Casement Park back up and running and get that stadium built and get that project done, because obviously in the past 4 or 5 years there's been talks of it being done, there's been sketches of it, there's been videos of what it would look like, and there's a lot of people kind of talking about it behind the scenes, but in serious reality it just still hasn't been done yet. And obviously there's a lot of issues behind the scenes with the GAA and the Ulster County Council and a few other things that they need to sort out. But certainly if they were to get that sorted, that would be huge in the re-rise of Antrim hurling in many ways. Because when you actually look at it, could you imagine if Antrim did get promoted from the Joe McDonagh Cup, which I think will happen at some stage in this decade? They will win that tournament and they will play in the Leinster Championship. Could you imagine then having games at Casement Park and Galway having to travel there, or Kilkenny, or whoever had to travel there in that particular year. I mean, the atmosphere that this stadium would create, you know, a 40,000 seater stadium. Hurling would very much be on the rise again. There would be a buzz around the city of Belfast and in other places in Antrim, and undoubtedly it would have a huge factor in Antrim rising in hurling once again, and not just in hurling but in Gaelic football as well. In terms of the past couple of years or so, you know, Antrim obviously in the Joe McDonagh Cup, they've been in there for the past 2 years. You know, they've had a little bit of you know, some bright moments at under 20 and at minor level. You know, in the 2013 under 21 All-Ireland Championship, they actually went on to play in the All-Ireland final, beating Wexford by 2 points in the semi-final. That was really their most significant moment in the past 10 years or so at underage level. They did play in a number of minor quarterfinals as well, but of course let's not forget they were coming through the Ulster Championship, which again isn't really that competitive. Okay, and then at number 4 we have Westmeath. Now obviously Westmeath, of course, were runners up in the Joe McDonagh Cup in the past 2 years, in both 2018 and 2019. Of course, in 2018 they lost to Carlow, and then in 2019 they lost to Laois, and there certainly have been significant rises in Westmeath in the past couple of years. They have been able to produce a lot of very talented players. You look at Tommy Doyle, for example, one of the best fullbacks in the country, very talented hurler for Westmeath. You know, you've got very talented forwards in the likes of Killian Doyle and Derek Nicholas, and then of course you've got the experience in midfield of Shane Glavin. They are, you know, a very talented side. They are continuously producing players. They have had some bright moments, of course, at minor and at under 21 level in the past couple of seasons. In 2016 and in 2017 they were actually under 21 Leinster semi-finalists, so they had some bright memories. For example, they beat Laois in 2017, but more importantly they actually beat Kilkenny in 2016. You know, one of the most significant victories at all levels in many ways for a county like Westmeath, beating Kilkenny in 2016. Dara Clinton in fact scoring 8 points on the day for Westmeath. And when you think about it, a lot of the players in that Kilkenny side right now actually play in the Kilkenny senior team, and you know, when you factor in Kilkenny obviously reaching the All-Ireland final last year, just how much of a difference that actually makes. I do feel that at some point Westmeath will win the Joe McDonagh Cup, and of course, you know, as we well know, whenever this whole corona situation calms down and GAA goes back to normal, it will actually be 2 promotions from the Joe McDonagh Cup in the first season, first time around, because they'll actually be adding 2 teams into the Leinster Hurling Championship. So there'll be an extra team in there every year, and you would have to feel that Westmeath at some point are going to get promoted. I think one of their most significant recent wins, in fact, was actually their victory over Offaly last season, and they actually beat Offaly in the Joe McDonagh Cup by 13 points. Killian Doyle, who we were just mentioning, of course, one of the bright players at the moment in this Westmeath side, actually scored 112 in that victory. So undoubtedly Westmeath are certainly moving in the right direction, and you know, I would expect them, you know, to have a bit more success again, potentially at minor and at under 20 level in the coming decade. Of course, it's always going to be very difficult for them to compete. You know, when you look at the sides in Leinster, Kilkenny, Wexford, Galway of course are in there now, so, and Dublin as well, so it's always going to be very tricky for Westmeath to break through. But certainly at the moment they are producing more and more talented players, and certainly the future does look quite bright for a county like Westmeath. And then at number 3 we have Carlow. Now obviously the hashtag Carlow Rising isn't there for no reason. It is there because Carlow are very much a county that is on the rise at the moment, and you know, 2018 they were Joe McDonagh Cup winners. They obviously played in the Leinster Championship last year in 2019. However, the main reasoning for Carlow's success has actually been at club level, so that was really what got the ball rolling, and it actually started in the 2013 to 2014 season when Mount Leinster Rangers actually won the Leinster Club Championship in that season, and they actually also went on to play in the All-Ireland Club Final as well. They beat Ballybowden St Enda's actually in the Leinster Club Championship semi-final as well, before beating the Wexford County champions at that time as well. So just absolutely massive in many ways for Carlow. And St Mullins as well were actually in the final in 2020 before they lost to Ballyhale Shamrocks. So certainly a lot of Carlow very much on the rise at the moment. at club level. They're certainly bringing through some players there and seeing some success. They won the Christie Ring Cup in 2017, and then in their first season in the Joe McDonagh Cup, they won it. They won that tournament in 2018. That was obviously massive for a county like Carlow, and certainly at under 20 and at minor level, there hasn't been anything too notable from Carlow. They did have 5 semi-final appearances in the under 20 Leinster Championship in the last decade. Their most notable win was over Dublin in 2013, and they actually had a 1-point loss to Laois in 2012, and they were very close to playing in the Leinster under 21 final that year. In terms of at minor level, it's been very bleak for Carlow. They haven't really done anything. Their only kind of real story there was 2006 when they played the Leinster minor final, but other than that, they haven't really had much success at minor level. In terms of their star players, of course, Marty Kavanagh, you have to look at him. Martin Kavanagh, he scored 11 points in their game against Galway last year in the Leinster Championship. Very talented forward player. Could probably get in a lot of other teams had he have not been from Carlow. We could be talking about him as a potential all-star if he wasn't from Carlow. So he is a very talented hurler. I do think when we look at Carlow, do have to think, have they potentially reached their peak? Are they going to rise more than what they already have? I think that is the big question. Winning the Joe McDonagh Cup in 2018, playing in the Leinster Championship in 2019, is it really ever going to get better than that for them, in my opinion? And maybe they might have some success again at club level or in the National Hurling League, or maybe what they might do is get back into the Leinster Championship and then maybe fight off relegation. We'll have to wait and see. It would be great to see Carlow sort of continue this rise, be there or thereabouts in the Leinster Championship, or at least in the Leinster Championship. And then at number 2 we have Laois. Now obviously Laois might not be that big of a surprise to some people. I mean, they did play in an All-Ireland quarter-final last year. They beat Dublin, of course, along the way in that very historic win for Laois. And yeah, of course, last year they were 2019 Joe McDonagh Cup champions. A massive day for them, of course, when they beat Westmeath in Croke Park. And they're a very talented side. Even in that All-Ireland quarter-final against Tipperary, they weren't exactly demolished or played off the park. They actually had some bright moments. And when you actually look at it, they were playing the All-Ireland champions. So Laois at the moment is a county that is, very exciting in terms of hurling. You look at Ross King, for example, the 27-year-old, very tricky left corner forward, scoring 3 goals and 10 points in their 2019 championship in total, and very talented player. They're also bringing through players like Aaron Dunphy, Mark Kavanagh and the Rowland. So those 3 players were very significant in that win over Dublin that allowed them to play in the All-Ireland quarter-final. So absolutely massive for Laois in many ways. And they have had some bright moments. In fact, of course, they were under 21 Leinster finalists in 2012. Stephen Maher, of course, the top scorer in the tournament with 23 points, and he was another player that has been brought through at Laois and that has took significant strides in becoming a top quality player. In 2013 they were beaten in the minor Leinster final, and then in 2015 in the minor championship, Mark Kavanagh was actually the top scorer that season with 3 goals and 23 points. Another player, of course, that we were mentioning as a very talented player in this Laois setup. It would have been very interesting to see how they would have got on in the Leinster Championship this year. I mean, obviously, with the whole situation that has happened, I mean, that's obviously going to be put on hold, and if it is a straight knockout, I don't think it will benefit them as well. But of course, whenever the round robin system does come back around in hurling, we will see Laois take on the likes of Dublin again and the likes of Galway, Kilkenny, Wexford, for example, and it will be very interesting to see how they get on. And of course, as we were mentioning just earlier, they will be adding another county into the Leinster Championship to make it a 6-team tournament. And of course, that would mean, I think it would be a lot easier for a county like Laois to potentially avoid relegation and really cement themselves as a Leinster hurling county. Alright, and then number 1 on the list, and maybe this might be a surprise to some people, or maybe it won't be, but it is, of course, Dublin. Now, maybe you could say it's a little bit unfair to have Dublin on this list. I mean, when you're comparing Dublin with the likes of Westmeath and Carlow and Laois, I mean, Dublin just blow them out of the water in terms of resources and funding and, what they actually have and what they can offer their county. But Dublin has never been a traditional hurling county in many ways. I mean, it certainly has taken significant strides in the past 10 to 15 years, but Gaelic football has always been the dominant sport, and Dublin have been a county that's been rising in hurling, not just in the most recent years, but really in the past 10 to 20 years. You know, there's been a lot of money that's been put into growing hurling in various different schools, in various different communities, and I do think at some point we are going to see Dublin really come out of the shell and start to, you know, win more Leinster hurling championships and potentially even compete in All-Ireland hurling finals. Now, do I think that would happen this decade? Would Dublin play in an All-Ireland hurling final in this decade? To be honest, I don't think so. I think hurling is just way too strong at the moment. But I think in the Leinster hurling championship we would see Dublin, you know, be there or thereabouts, you know, potentially in this decade. I think out of all the counties on this list, I think they are the most likely to win a provincial championship. Again, it mostly boils down to resources, and it boils down to what has been pumped into the county by the GEA, and certainly, you know, that kind of makes them have a bit more of an advantage over those other counties. Probably not the best county on this list though in terms of their actual team right now. I mean, let's not forget they were beaten by Laois last year. But if we just look through what Dublin have done in the past 10 years to really sort of establish themselves as a hurling county, you know, 2011 they won the National Hurling League, and they also in 2013 won the Leinster Senior Championship, and it was the first time they had won it, I believe, in 52 years. Significant day for Dublin hurling, beating Galway in the final. And of course Dublin have had some success at under 21 and minor level as well. Of course, in the minor Leinster Championship they were the champions on 4 occasions in the past decade: 2011, 2012, 2016 and 2018. And they also actually went on to play in the All-Ireland minor final in both 2011 and 2012. So significant sort of step forward for Dublin there, playing in All-Ireland minor finals. I believe one of them actually went to a replay, so they were very close to winning the All-Ireland minor championship. I believe that was in 2011. And of course in the under 21 championship as well, they have seen success as well. They were All-Ireland finalists in 2011, and obviously they won the Leinster Championship in 2011 as well. In 2016 they were the under 21 Leinster champions. So a lot of significant strides there really in under 20 and in a minor level. You know, they have a lot of experience in their side. Conal Keeney, for example, dual player, has done it in Gaelic football, and of course has very much been a part of Dublin's hurling setup for quite a long time now as well. You've got players like Liam Rush, Sean Moran, Oisin O'Rourke, Danny Sutcliffe of course in there as well. So I suppose the only kind of big problem has been with Dublin in hurling down the years, of course, has been inconsistency. Changing managers probably way too frequently. They tend to follow up a very good result with a bad result. You know, they beat Galway in a massive game in the Leinster Championship last year, and then of course lost against Laois in the qualifier, which, you know, one step forward, 2 steps back in many ways for Dublin. And I think that is what they have to really try to fix if they are to become a real sort of competitor and challenger in the hurling championship. But anyway lads, that is going to be the end of the video. Do let me know down in the comments below if there are any counties that I have missed on this list. Obviously, you know, it was very tricky trying to put together this video. I mean, there aren't really that many counties that are rising at the moment in hurling. When you really look at all the details, you've always just sort of had your traditional 5 counties down in Munster. You've had your other counties in Leinster. But, you know, when you really do look into it and you look at the under 20, you know, facts and figures, and in the minor championships, there are some notable results and wins in there that do say that these counties are on the rise and could potentially spring a bit of an upset in the next 5 to 10 years. So I suppose we will just have to wait and see. But anyway lads, I hope you lads enjoyed, and yeah, do let me know down in the comments below what sort of videos you want me to make next. My name is Aaron, and I will speak to you all soon. Have a lovely week. Goodbye.